discuss with us the first in this first phase of the discussion. Thank you, and thank you very much. Tim.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I would like to begin by apologizing. The technology sometimes plays tricks on us. Thanks be to those guys that have technology savvy. They helped me out, and finally I was able to make it. But I want to thank everyone that has taken the time to join us here to share a few things that I believe can help every one of us. I thank the chair for organizing this. We come to you, maybe we could make a disclaimer right up front with the ideas that can trigger new thoughts. It doesn't mean that they are comprehensive. It doesn't mean that we know it all, but it shows that we know a few things. And if we're taken in mind, these few little things can help you maybe get better in what you're trying to do, improve your situation, or maybe even touch other lives if that's your goal. And so without taking any more time, I wanted us to dive into business and why would one want to own their own business? Why is it possible for us to prosper in this country and maybe even go beyond? Why would it be a good idea? Or if I may ask, why do you want to start your own business? And these are the kinds of things we'll be talking about. We will leave it up to you to choose the kind of business that you want to join. But in my opinion, it's very, very important for whoever wants to start a business, or even really for all the people on the forum, to make it a point to mind your own business. And the reason I say that you need to mind your own business is because if you do not have a plan for your life, for your business life, for your finances, someone else is going to have a plan that will accommodate you. You'll fall into somebody else's plan. Now, since you guys came here to listen to this, I believe that many of you are interested in what has to be shared. Many of you are still working as an employee of somebody. This forum is not here to knock people that are employed, but we are here to look for people. If you are interested in taking it to the next level and minding your own business, sooner or later you may become a boss, you may become a business owner, you may be able to employ others versus working for other people. Now, having said that, it's really, really important if you have an employment, not to look at your employment as the end in the means, but to use it as a learning experience and learn as much as you can. All organizations, especially in this country, have standard operating procedures. They have plans. We have business meetings every Monday and Wednesday of the week. You get to learn a lot. You learn to negotiate. You learn to run departments as your own business. If you go there and you don't fight the idea that this is my job, and you learn as much as you can, when you get a chance to run your own business, you'll be able to excel. You'll be able to use the tools. Now, having said that, I think I need to cross a few misconceptions right up front. If you want to start your own business, if you want to do your own business, and your idea is that, so I can become a boss, so I can sleep in late and go do my work and leave early and go to work whenever I feel like, and if I don't feel like it rained too much or it froze in Houston, now I can take a full week off. If that's your idea of running your business, then I suggest that you stay with your employment. Because if you are going to choose to do a business, a personal business, then you need to plan on working at least a minimum of 60 hours. When I did this myself, I realized even 60 hours were not enough. You also have to be so organized to organize your entire week, not in slots of daily, you know, I got 8 days. I used to sit down and I realized I have 168 hours in a week. And go and plan for every hour very, very wisely, because you're going to need the hours. Because of that, because you're going to have to work extra, especially in the beginning, it requires diligence, it requires discipline, it requires knowledge, it requires skills, extraordinary skills. Why do you need all these skills? Let me take an example and say, let's say you want to get into computers. Let me show you a few of your competitors. Probably Bill Gates. He has a very big budget to crush everyone who is trying to get into computers and maybe computer software. Then you have Apple, they are your competitors. And you have a few others, you know, Dell and all the others. If that is the industry you've chosen, those big guys are big enough to crush you. If you are not willing to fight the fight, you can as well stay where you are and forget the business. If you chose to go into automobiles, maybe sales or whatever it is, your competitors are Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Honda, you know, Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW, to name just a few. So if you choose to get into that business, whether you get in just in parts, again, there's a long list of companies that are listed. My point is this: if you're going to start your own business, it's not for the faint of heart. You need to sit down and make a very clear plan and know what the competitor does. Try to figure out a way to navigate around him. And then I don't want to scare you and say, well, if I start a business like this, I'm destined to fail. Even though statistics shows that over 90% of the businesses that started this year will fail. Not necessarily because of COVID, because this is historical. And there is a reason why a lot of them fail. But let me tell you a little bit about why it's really good to start your own business. Number one, there are benefits. You get to be your own boss. If that is of interest to you, you have flexibility. With the flexibility, you can set your schedule. You can work long hours. You can work early. You can choose to work late. You have financial rewards, because the reason we choose to go in business is to share in the profits. My mentor used to tell me profits are better than wages. By the way, that's true every time. Profits are much better than wages. When you go to get a wage, maybe like the top 3 guys in a company, the CEO, the CFO, and maybe the chairman of the board, stuff like that, those may make significant incomes in terms of wages. But the rest of them, their pay is dictated by the CFO and by a bunch of other things. But when you go and make an investment, let's say you make a widget and the world, your whole world falls in love with it, you can name your price. Your profits may be as low as maybe 10, 20%, or as even 100%. So profits are better than wages. The second point that I want to make here is, if you make profits, nobody has ever become poor by taking profits. So those are kind of two things that you may want to think about. Then the second thing, I mean, the other point is you can be innovative with whatever you've chosen to do in your business, whether it's a service business or whether it's a product. You can choose your own identity just by being so innovative. Everybody will want to join you. The next thing is you can impact your community. You can impact your community so well, you become a main brand. I remember the gentleman that does gallery furniture. From the very first time I moved to Houston many years ago, I thought to myself, this guy, he talks funny, he does a little bit funny things, but he always gives. You know, I was always curious. So I read about what's his name, Big Mac or something like that. Anyway, I read about his story and saw how the guy came up. But this guy has created his own brand. And when he says gallery saves you money, you can't argue with it because he's done it for so long. He's created his own brand. And you can do the same. You can do the same in a really unique way. You also get to control your own destiny. In that case, your boss won't have to dictate to you how much you can make, when you can be at work, what opportunities you can change to. In my line of work, in my employment, there is what we used to call MOC, management of change. If I wanted to change anything in our system, I would go through so many layers. In our case, we would have engineers, you would have management, you would have financial people, you would have technicians, you would have to go through so much just to prove to them, hey, we can do this, it will be cheaper, it will save us money, it will be a better product. In your own business, maybe by a stroke of a pen or even make a phone call or a directive through email, you can do that without so much hassle. You can also use your business to set your own life balance. There is always a risk and a reward. If you take the risk, chances are you may be rewarded tremendously. But one of the things that I love most is you get to choose to build your own team. If you don't want to work with Mr. Jimmy Carter, you don't have to hire Mr. Jimmy Carter. But if you love to work with Mr. Mwanga, you can call him up and give him add a few little coins to his fortune, convince him he can come work with you. And every day will not be like a real hard work because you'll be laughing together, doing things, but accomplishing something. Something of significance. Now, I'm briefly going to go into the disadvantages. And I've given you quite a number of advantages. And that's why I recommend, if you can, start your own business. There are more advantages than disadvantages. But some of the disadvantages, the financial risk. And luckily for us, we have a bank here that will go into a lot of that. But there is a financial risk. How much are you willing to invest? How much do you have? And is it a guarantee that you'll get a return, a good return on your investment? There are no guarantees in business. The level of stress to a business owner are rather significant. And part of the stress comes because, especially when you are starting out, you're going to have to wear so many hats. You'll be the CEO, but you'll also be the CFO. You'll be the financial officer. You'll be the sales manager, and you'll be the advertising manager. You'll be your own human resources manager. You have to hire people, but you also have to be the major planner. So by wearing all of these different hats, I can assure you one thing: no one is very, very well prepared to handle all of those hats at the same time. And sooner or later, you will need to hire somebody. You may need to hire an accountant. But if you do, that cuts in your profits. And so those are some of the disadvantages that one may have to encounter. As you wear these hats, you have to carry out so many various duties in order to succeed. And it can be a challenge. It's not for the faint of heart. But having said that, I want to look at our group, especially as the people that come from immigrants that come here, and make it a point, because when we first come here, especially those of us that had quite a bit of education, some went to Makerere, some maybe went to other universities in Africa. There is an attitude of the African students or the immigrants coming here, and they portray the idea that, well, I already have a master's, I know what I'm doing. And you come in this society and you say, well, I already have a master's, so you expect to get a job at a master level, maybe in an organization. And for many of our people, they come with this attitude, it's non-negotiable because I already have this degree. I want to encourage you to realize that just because you have a degree, especially from Africa, doesn't necessarily qualify you to get here and excel. There is a learning curve, and you have to be willing to embrace that. If you're not going to embrace that, I suggest that you probably think otherwise about starting a business. But you have to embrace the changes. You have to embrace you have to have a desire to be humble enough to learn from others that are already in the system. It would be very, very good to get a mentor if you can. Now, be very careful when you choose a mentor. Is he doing what you want to do? Is he in the line of work that you want to pursue? Do they have the skills? If he doesn't have all the skills, can you acquire the skills elsewhere? And my answer is yes. But it's very, very important. You humble yourself and get a mentor and learn from them as much as you possibly can. If you just do that, that will take you to levels that you've never imagined. Now, lastly, I'll leave you with these three things. If you choose to do a business, choose an area that you are passionate about. If you will be passionate about what you do, let's say you are a tailor, you know how to put these clothes together and stuff like that. If you are that kind of person, and whether people buy your clothes or your shirts or whatever, your designer clothes or not, you're still delighted to make more shirts. Or if you're an artist, whether you are paid or not, you still love to paint. That's the way you want to spend your time. Or a musician, or whatever your business could be. If you are delighted in doing that, it's a skill that you enjoy, that you do whether you are paid or not, I think you want to something. You can use that and excel. Number two is have focus. I know so many people that started in completely different fields and they said, I'm going to do this business, and the things got a little bit hard. Then they stopped and they started another business, and they did that a little bit and they stopped and had another business. Well, let me ask you a question. If you went and planted a nice, good tree, especially here in Houston, Texas, spring is a good time to plant a tree. And you let your tree, you water it very well and it starts moving. And then all of a sudden, you decide, I don't like where that tree is. And so after a week or so, you move that tree from there and plant it somewhere else. And then after another week, you say, no, let me take it away. And you plant it somewhere else. And then you plant it somewhere else. How well do you think that tree will grow? Mm-hmm. It will not. And so have focus and concentrate. And if you find something, stick with it. The next point is preparation, which I talked about already. Mentor, get a mentor, learn as much as you can. And I think if you take those three things in mind, you'll be able to excel in handling your own affairs, doing your own business. With that, I think I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kizito. And we'll be sending you some few questions from the audience. And but we are glad you are able to open up our minds on that we can focus on certain things and not not going everywhere. There we burn a lot of energy moving from one place to another, and before you know it, time is gone. And so we're glad for that. So anybody with their business, you want to bring it forward? 1 minute commercial. Okay. It looks like we don't have business people in the city of Houston, but I know for sure that Ugandans are business-oriented people. I remember some time ago, before I came to this country, we used to go for weddings, and any big occasion, those young paparazzis would come and take your picture, very nice picture of you, better than the official photographer. And then immediately they go and produce it and bring it right there and show you. And when you see the picture, you see yourself there, you don't want to let it go. So you end up paying for it. And that was so creative that those boys made a lot of money in it. And I don't know, we have entrepreneurship in us that we can do anything at any place. And if you can transfer that same knowledge from the Uganda to here, and then you make good use of it here, customize what we have here, I tell you what, you can't go wrong. So all of us are capable of doing any kind of business, any form of business. And as you know, this country favors people who are doing business. You can work and you're getting salary, but you will not enjoy yourself as much as a person who is doing business, because the laws are actually protecting the business people. That's why they're even paying sometimes less taxes than you who is working. So these are advantages for all of us who, if we can take advantage of them, will be good. Okay. Now, without wasting more time, since we don't have business people here, but they can come in later, I would like to shift ourselves to the financial aspect of it. As you all know, any money in the banking system is clean money. Any money which is out of the banking system is not clean. So for a bank, for you to have any form of business, you need to relate with the banking system. That way they know that your money can be accounted for. But if you're keeping your money under your bed and you're doing business, you keep your money under your bed, that might not work so well here. I know it worked with our forefathers back home, but it might not be applicable here. The more you relate with the banking system, the more you understand what is going on, and that trend can enable you to go higher. And that's what we are following. We are following the American dream, not the Ugandan dream for now. We are on the American dream focus. So with that said, I would like to bring in Mr. Muwanga Batuuka. He's an experienced banker, and he knows a lot. He's been in the city of Houston for a long time. And for some of you, if you're just hearing him for the first time, this is a very important person you need to relate to. You can't mention Muwanga Chivumbi, Muwanga Batuuka, and you miss him. If you say to anybody, they will think you don't live in Houston. So please, with that, Mr. Muwanga, please come on.
He's muted.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that kind introduction. I wonder if it is deserved, but I'll take it. I thank the members of the community who have set aside time to join us in this discussion. I've been in banking for about 20 years. I work for Regions Bank as one of the vice presidents. So banking is something that I've done for quite a bit of time. Now, just to set some expectations for those that might be taking notes, I'd like to state the following. I'll be discussing how we approach banking, and then at that point we'll take off, and I intend to fly at about 30,000 feet to capture the scope of banking. And from time to time, we might be descending a little bit to examine very specific aspects of banking. And then as we continue to survey the scope and the terrain, we will fly into some rough weather. That will be discussing some of the challenges that I, as one of the members in this community, I have observed. This is a safe zone, so we may have some honest discussion about the challenges that we face. Some of them attitudinal, some of them could be knowledge gap. And then I shall offer some final thought, at which point we shall land. So I'll start with the approach to banking. First of all, I'd like to disabuse you of the traditional perception of banking. I think most people look at banking simply as a deposit institution. We relate to banking in a very narrow sense. If you ask someone to name their bank, they'll probably just mention an institution where they have their checking account, and that will be it. That will be banking to them. So if for nothing else today, I'd like to introduce you to the wider scope. If we could widen our aperture to capture what banking is involved in, hopefully that can help those that are endeavoring into business, and certainly those who are individuals who are what we call consumers. So that will be my first task. So again, the modern view of banking is about helping our customers, both individuals and businesses, to make better financial decisions. So we need to look at a bank as a resource, a place where we can go for what we call a financial checkup, so that we can have a conversation about our goals. What is it that we are trying to achieve? Just like you would go to your medical doctor. You may have a specific complaint when you go to a doctor, but that doctor is not just not going to turn around and pick up some tablets and just throw them in your hands and say, hey, take some water and these tablets. No, I think a competent ethical doctor would spend some time to learn about the history of your health, to find out what else is there about your health, and then make some recommendation. That is the diagnostic part of it. We take the same approach, but before we go into exactly how we do it, I would like to also disabuse you of some of the discomfort sometimes people feel when they go into banks. And partly the bankers are to blame. And certainly for the organization that I work for, Regions Bank, we are training bankers to make sure that they set the expectation when they are talking to customers. I'll mention a few, maybe 3 areas why we ask these questions. The first one is what bankers call know your customer. Know your customer is a concept that came from Congress after the attack on the United States, what we call the 9/11, because it was found out that a lot of these people were, using banking institutions, and banks and their bankers had no idea who these people were or what they were doing. So from there, the outgrowth of that concern and the law that was passed, the Patriot Act, requires us bankers to know our customer. By that we mean, we will ask you for government issued ID. We'll ask you the nature of the account that you're looking to open. We'll ask you what kind of transactions you are going to have. If you're a business, we'll ask you who and where those transactions are going to, or collections are going to come from, or who are you going to send money to. We need to have that knowledge just in case something were to happen. As a banker, one needs to, if you get that call, it's not a comfortable call to receive, say, from the FBI, and there are questions that are being asked about a business, we need to be able to explain that, well, you know what, I know what that business does, I know who they deal with, and I know how they collect their money or how they disperse the money. So that's the first aspect, knowing your customer. The second aspect is about risk. Risk also has different areas. There is financial risk. In other words, we are trying to prevent loss of people's money because, again, we are custodians of people's futures, their hard-earned dollars. So it's very important for us to understand that financial risk. Some of the other risks are regulatory. Banking is a very regulated industry. Therefore, there are specific laws that we have to abide by. Therefore, the questions and us finding out exactly what kind of business you are involved in helps us to make sure that we are within the boundaries of regulations. Another type of risk is actually political. I don't know if some of you remember the last time you went to a bank and they asked you if you are a public figure, or in other words, or related to a public figure. To a common person, that may not make a lot of sense. That why are they asking all these questions? Well, the United States, especially the Treasury Department, has a list of countries that under embargo, under the Office of Foreign Asset Control, the individuals that have political exposure. And for many of us here on the forum, we know that especially in the global south or developing countries, say, let's look at Africa as a continent, a lot of people who are in politics, the Mobutu Sese Sekos of the world, the Robert Mugabes of the world, and people like that, the Nguemas, they are billionaires. They take money that is from the public purse. So we want to know if we are going to have political exposure if we open accounts for you. So all these are relevant questions that we ask because we also have to guard our reputation, because what happens, the dictator falls, and then before you know it, the incoming government is looking for those assets, and we find ourselves in crosshairs, and including litigation. The third type of risk is, of course, reputation. By here, we mean there are certain type of businesses that we simply won't be able to work with, because again, the company that I work for has been in business for more than 200 years. Reputation is important. Our brand is important to us. It's an asset. Therefore, if gentlemen or ladies, you're planning on opening up a gentleman's club or a ladies' club, what in Kampala they call the Chimansulo, I may not open your account, for you, simply because it may not be it's not the kind of business that we want to bank. So again, I wanted to look through those risks. Hopefully, those of you who are contemplating business, so that you get a sense of what kind of risk that we might be looking at. And particularly for that area that I've just been discussing, is to set that expectation the next time you go to a bank, certainly if you came to mine, so that when we start that conversation, and asking some questions. It's not an interrogation, but those important questions are important for us to assess the kind of risk that we have to. Finally, again, with regard to that, we have questions, what we call in my bank a needs-based conversation, because by finding out what your needs are, what the needs of the businesses are, that's when I'm able to make recommendations. That is key. That's very important. Hopefully, if you leave tonight, next time you go into a bank, especially a new bank, and you sit down with a banker who immediately just say, hey, let me go ahead and start opening accounts. So without having had a conversation about what you might need, what you're looking for, then my suggestion would be that you simply need to leave, because they're probably just product pushing. They're just opening accounts to get some points for them to go forward. A seasoned banker will start by asking and finding out what brings you to the bank and how our solutions can benefit the needs that you might be looking for. So that is the approach that I wanted to start with. So now let's go into the kind of scope that we deal with. I'll start with what we call business structure. Business structure will begin, when I think about business structure, first of all, you have to talk to maybe a CPA to make a determination as to what legal entity you want to create. Is it going to be a sole proprietorship? Is it going to be a limited liability company? Is it going to be a corporation? Unfortunately, as a bank, I can't help you on that because of the tax implications. That's a conversation you need to have with your CPA. However, having had that conversation, when you come to the bank, you need to have proof of that legal entity. Means that you need to have registered your company. I may detain you here for a second. It's important, having listened to Mr. Kizito, and you've now made an enterprise selection as to what type of business you want to go into. It is important that you register a company, you register an entity. A lot of our people just start doing their business maybe in their name, and they are getting checks. So they're doing business as individuals. You have to separate the two so that they are they are two separate entities. That is something we recommend. Again, remaining in structure, when we consider business structure, we also look at industry. What kind of industry are you getting into? Again, a bank is not going to help you with industry selection. That's the conversation you would have had with team and people before you come to me. I would just be interested in what kind of industry that you are getting into, because again, from a banking standpoint, we have risk grades in terms of the industry. We know what industries are high risk and what industries are more stable, and therefore the range of solutions or the extent of business that we can do with you, especially in the lending space, is in a way determined by the kind of industry that you are getting into. Some industry, we may not have appetite for some industries. So it's important to select your industry. And in this case, this is where I say that I might have to, at some point, descend to a lower altitude to have a closer examination. Given our immigrant background, our concept of a business structure is absolutely different from United States. Many of us who left Uganda when we were adults will remember a couple of people who may have a 10 square footage kind of area where they have a desk and a table. and that's where they're running their business. And this person may have several borders. They have some comunas, these taxis. They have maybe a farm somewhere in Bugerere or Masaka growing matoke. And the same person may be importing pichi or motorcycles and maybe, you know, doing some kind of whatever kind of trade. And they may be even making wedding cakes for, for grooms and brides. Here's the thing, that is how our people are used to do their business. When you come over here and you open a business and you go to a bank and you are telling me that you are in trucking business, you have several 18-wheelers, right? When transactions are coming in from some bridal company that are paying you for some cake making or whatever, it does not make sense in the regulatory side over here, right? We have a lot of people that may open up, say you have a restaurant, and then all of a sudden they're getting wire transfers, say from Nigeria, 40,000, and there's some transfers from China. Now, I'm not telling you a secret that these financial transactions are monitored. So those that are monitoring these transactions are going to assess whether or not the monies that are moving in and out are making sense, consistent or inconsistent with the business that you have. So the question might be that if you have a little diner, why in the hell is someone wiring you $40,000 from Nigeria? What kind of food are you, did they order, right? So the frustration that we get, is that I have some African business customers, and I think they're having a hard time understanding the business model and the regulations over here. I empathize with them because I've seen the way business is done, especially on the continent, but this is a different ballgame. Our regulations are such that the transactions that are inconsistent with the business that you've declared that you're dealing in will create red flags. And frankly, that account could be shut down in a second. So again, my point is this. If you are going to be in import, export, and you're going to be sending things to Africa, whatever it is, then create an entity that clearly states that. If you are going to have something else that may be a different set of business, unfortunately, you're going to create a different entity and do business consistent with what that business does. Otherwise, you cannot explain those anomalies. You can't win. So I've spent a little bit on time on business structure, but before I wind up on that, we look at revenue. It's important that you know exactly what kind of revenues that you're getting. Sometimes it's kind of tasking when people have this saying that is kind of loose and imprecise. You ask someone how much money they make in a year, and they tell you, well, I make 100,000, 150, 200. I say, okay, which one is the answer, right? So you could tell me that, okay, I made 200,000 2019, and then last year it came down to maybe 150. I can understand that, but don't be cute and try to throw numbers to try to throw me off. I'm going to need some precision when you're dealing with these things. So where do you do the business? Is it in an office? Is it an online thing? I mean, do you have a store? How many employees you have? Though that is part of the structure. And again, I can't have this string often enough. we will be asking you these questions for the risk assessments that I spoke about earlier when I started. But I'll move on to the next part as I do the scope. And again, the thread through my discussion is banks are here. The modern view is here to help you make better financial decisions. We are not simply a deposit organization. So now we come to the cash management solutions that we have, or services that we have. In a layman's language, this we mean, how do you collect money? How does money come into your business? Do people bring in cash? Are they paying you by check? Are they using Zelle? Do they use debit cards, credit cards? Do you use SCH? Do you use wires? We ask those questions. And the same is true in terms of how does money leave your account to when you're dispersing those funds. That could be to pay for inventory. It could be for your payroll or any other disbursement. And also, it's important that we have this discussion because, as Mr. Kizito alluded to in his presentation earlier, that as a business owner, you can be bogged down by these various activities. You're doing payroll, you are arranging how people are coming in, you're trying to figure out the schedule, who comes in at this time, who called in sick, and those kind of things. Things that are, some of them are operational, some have to do with human resource, some of them have to do with invoices, who is paid and who is not paid. The point again, if I lose you in any other area, what I want you to understand is that there is technology and there are processes to help you with running those things so that you spend more time growing, expanding, and helping your customers, and you spend less on that. So cash management is about the movement, the collecting of money from, say, your customers, and how it is dispersed to those people that you need to pay, including your employees. And the objective here is to attain security, because we have features to make sure that there is fraud prevention and so forth, speed and convenience. Those are things that we are looking for. Just to give you, for instance, an example, if we are talking, I spoke about how do you collect money. I mentioned checks, credit cards, and so forth. Also, if you are a company, for instance, that gets a lot of checks, probably we need to bring a check scanner to your establishment so that you don't need to go to the bank and you just scan the checks, at your desk. And again, this is where I kind of descend to become a little bit more specific, although I'm trying to, as much as possible, to resist the urge, but to make that, to bring that clarity that those are the kind of things that we do. The disbursement obviously can be again through checks, debit cards, payroll system, reloadable cards. Those are things that we deal with. Now let's move on to payroll services. Again, this is where I also disabuse you of the old notion. People, when they hear about payroll services, there is a tendency to only look at it as a service that prepares payroll, the paycheck that you get at the end of the month, after 2 weeks, or whatever it is. Modern payroll services are more robust than that. They can start from searching for talent through scheduling interviews. They can go through onboarding. They can go through scheduling for your employees. They could go through human resource, including benefits, how you organize them, all the way to obviously processing payroll, tax withholding, filing those taxes for you. All that can be done. And yes, we can take care of that. And again, these are solutions that a business owner needs to be aware of. Maybe when you're just starting and you're one person or two, maybe you and your husband or you and your wife, these may not be things that are of huge concern. But let me tell you, depending on how intense and the demands of running that business could be, there is no threshold for when you can use some of these business processes to bring about efficiency. And again, anything that can free you from the administrative part of it, the operational part of it, and concentrate on growing your business is what we come in to help you do. So let me move to another area in this scope. This is asset management. We talked about how money comes in, how money leaves. Mr. Kizito talked about making a profit. Maybe, and that's a good place to be. You're having more money coming in and less leaving your account. That's great, which means that now we have an opportunity to have a discussion about the idle cash that is in the account. What kind of solutions, what kind of conversations should we have about that? Should we build some cash reserves that need to be liquid? Beyond that, what kind of plans are we going to have, especially you as a business owner, to make sure that you start your long-term planning, including retirement? Maybe you have employee benefits. Maybe this is money that needs to be invested. We do have the tools to do that. That's where cash management comes in. Again, to accelerate a little bit, let's go to lending. Lending is extremely critical, because this is where you can cover your short-term needs. For instance, if you have a company that supplies something and then there is time, maybe 30 days before you get payment, or 60, I don't know, whatever it is. But in the meantime, you have obligations. How do you bridge that gap? What kind of mechanisms should you have in place? Those are areas that we can talk about. How about if you're thinking about expansion and you don't have enough cash, in place in the bank? What kind of lending options can we provide? All those are conversations that we have. And then buying equipment, all those are the kind of things that we talk about. It is very, very important for a business owner to make sure that you separate your personal account from your business account. Probably the accountant, when they get a chance, they can talk to that more, but it's very, very important. One of the challenges that we have, and I'll be soon turning into challenges, is that we commingle a lot. The thing that will happen, God forbid, if you file those taxes and you're claiming to be a business owner and you're having all these expenses and you can't separate the personal from the business, you're going to be in trouble. So if you run a business and you want to take your wife or girlfriend to dinner, you better move some money from that business account and put it in your personal account and pull out your personal debit card and do that. Because at probably 10 p.m. at night, or if you're taking her to a club, pulling that card and paying, using your business card is not going to be a good idea when you're trying to convince an IRS agent that, oh, these are business expenses. So a lot of this stuff, we simply need to have the knowledge and some guidance to do the things that will not put us into trouble. Now, let's get into the rough weather. Let's talk about the challenges as I see them. And when I discuss these challenges, I'm going to narrow it, to mainly our community and immigrant and African community in general. Some of these, Mr. Kizito alluded to. The lack of proper planning is a big deal. Planning simply requires us to set our goals, and those goals have to be quantifiable, and they need to have a timeline. Saying that, you know what, I want to own a $500,000 business is not a plan, it's a wish or a dream. Then you need then to start, putting down numbers and the timeline, how you're going to get to that point. And we need to have some specificity in terms of what that plan is going to look like. My appeal to you is this: if you've already started a business, you need to talk to a banker to have the needs conversation that I spoke about, so that you tell the banker where you want your business to be, maybe in the next 5 years, at the end of the year, 10 years, whatever it's got to be. And then we make the assessment of the present, and then we see the gap between the present and the future. How do we define that? What will it take for you to get from this point to the other? Now, having set a goal in the future, maybe 5 years, quantifiable, you have a timeline. The other thing that we always forget is planning for the unforeseen or the emergencies. If you can indulge me here for a few minutes, I have horror stories about this thing, and to me, it's one of the things that really, as a banker, sometimes I feel when a customer gets in that kind of trouble, I almost take it personally that I've failed them. A lot of immigrant business owners, once they have a little bit of money, they have this feeling that they have succeeded, and they have it. You call them or you tell them to come for an appointment to talk. They're like, I don't have time. Okay. I'm too busy. I have a nice home. I've done that. I'm very successful. Here's the thing. There are events that are either natural or they're going to be risks, or whatever it's going to be, that is going to happen. In 2017, when Harvey hit Houston, I had 5 business customers that I had spent time with, trying to tell them to have some, what I would call defensive products, like insure some of their key employees and some of the facilities and so forth, or make sure that let's have some lines of credit that you can get, so that when something happens, you don't run to the bank, but you have already access to funds, right? Keep telling you that, no, I'm okay. So then what happens? I remember particularly this lady whose house was destroyed by Harvey, and the business was also destroyed. The resources she had in the bank, she came to the bank to try to do some repairs and try to, put back the inventory and so forth. Obviously, she depleted those resources. And then, almost 3 weeks after, she's calling me frantically, and she wants to meet with me. And at this point, she wants to borrow money. You're trying to borrow money when you've already used all the money in the account, and you're probably getting late on the bills. The lesson here is that there are certain things like lines of credit that you have to get when you're doing well, because you have the capacity, you have the credit, you have all the conditions are perfect for the bank to say yes. Our people, and I've seen this, our people would not want to talk to a bank because they think they are okay, they don't need anybody. They come when they are against the ropes. At that point, they don't have the customers because they're probably not even open. They have used all the money they claimed they had, and now they want the bank to give them money when they don't even have the capacity to pay back. These are lessons that our community has failed to learn. And I don't know how else I can place it. But to me, this has been, you probably can sense how passionate I am when it comes to some of this stuff. We do not prepare for emergencies. And these emergencies simply, it does not necessarily mean that you have to save tons and tons of money. Those that can save, yes, go ahead and save. But there are some other products and devices that we have in place that can help you in case of something like that. Let me go on to the next one. This is about our lack of humility. Again, Mr. Kizito talked about this. Most Africans, especially who have university degrees, that's the first thing they will tell you in a 5-minute conversation. I went to St. Mary's, I went to Chitovu, I went to Chisubi, I have a master's, I have this and that, before, as soon as you get to know their name. It's as if, I don't know if this is colonial mentality, but we think that education is the end. So we are like, okay, I have this certificate, so then the world should just open doors for me and I just go in. Everyone should just look at me. So we think, that attitude prevents us from seeking the advice and guidance that we need, because we probably think that because we have these these degrees and these certificates and went to great schools, we are expected to be omniscient. We need to demonstrate that we know everything. Fact of the matter is that, we don't know everything. If it's a question about real estate, I don't see why I would not go to Mr. Wandera to ask questions about real estate and the market and so forth. He has specific expertise in that area, and there is no shame in asking those questions. And it doesn't make me less intelligent or less accomplished. The other thing, and in a way I kind of touched it, is always being reactive. We go to the bank when we need something, and we erroneously assume that the bank is going to say yes. And then we get frustrated that I've been with that bank for 10 years. The only time I needed help, they turned me down. I hear those stories all the time. My thing is this. I called a visit to a banker as a checkup, like you have a medical checkup. Use the bank as a resource, especially if you're a business owner. Tell your banker what you plan to do in the future, because during that conversation, probably they're going to tell you what you should not be doing in the present. Because if you continue doing what you're doing, when that time comes, we may not say yes. And we could tell you what you should start doing so that when that time comes, there could be a convergence of mind, yours and ours, when we say, okay, yes. So we have to be, we are too reactive. Things are coming to us instead of us planning and just finding the resource to check in that if I'm doing the right thing or not. And we are limited in our imagination. By that, I mean that we are content with being better than the other Ugandan. And that's just sufficient. I pay my bills, I have a nice car, and I have a couple of $1,000 in my account, so I'm a business successful owner. I'm a business owner. I mean, we don't strive toward wealth and eventually legacy. How many of you remember some businesses back in Uganda that seems to be doing well, and then maybe the owner died and everything died with them? Compare that to the legacies that people in the Western world have, where you find a company that was established in 18 something in the family and they still have it. How many of those do we have? That limited imagination. And again, I'm not saying this to put my community down, and I hope you can get it from the sense I'm giving it. I'm simply saying that we can have broader, wide range and longer range, planning, because the resources are there. You can go to the bank, not just to deposit that check or take out money, but to speak to a banker to figure out how best you can run that business and how can it survive the rough terrain ahead when things get tough. Are you prepared? Lastly, obsession to the accumulation and what I would call, especially it happens, a lot of people here who are making money, the first thing that comes, let me get, an extra 10 acres of land in Uganda, an extra 50 acres. And I think it's so good, but to what end? Is that, are you just accumulating land to be a big landlord, or are you looking at land, for instance, as an asset that is going to give you cash flow? Because if you've spent $50,000 to buy a piece of land that is not yielding a basket of mangoes, and you've had it for 10 years, you are just depleting the hard-earned dollars that sometimes you work 3 jobs to get. And again, I'm not suggesting in any way that we should not buy property. I'm simply saying that if it's not a piece of property that you're going to buy to build maybe a home, if you're just getting, these, and it could be any kind of property. The question could be, are you simply acquiring and accumulating other things that would otherwise be assets that would be generating income for you? Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I learned I might be getting an opportunity to answer some questions. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Batuka. And with that, there's a question that has come forth. I think it's saying, does your bank allow visitors to open accounts, foreign visitors?
If you're talking about personal account, yes. Okay. They have to have at least 2 forms of government issued ID. Those could be issued by the government of the country of origin. For instance, a passport and a driver's license. Those could be sufficient. Yes, they can.
Okay, thank
you. But we can't open business accounts.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Mr. Kaya, is there questions on the board, on the chat? Yeah, go right ahead.
No question.
Oh, there's a question here, and I think this is still goes to Mr. Mwanga Batuka. Is what's that? Do banks offer authentic life insurance? I think somebody went to the bank and they're doing something like life insurance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Certainly, our bank does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the question there. Okay. Any other question, people? So something there.
Mr. Patrick, you're muted.
Yeah, Mr. Mwanga, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
When I come to open an account at your bank
Mhm.
and I'm a businessman, do I use my social or I must have a tax ID number?
That's a good question. When you open your account as a sole proprietorship, you can use your, actually we recommend that you use your social security number. And the way usually the titling of the account is Miss Wandera Patrick doing business as home and home lenders. That is like a DBA. However, and let me just for a second stay there. The reason we allow that is because, first of all, sole proprietorship file their taxes as ES&D individuals under their social security numbers. Now, you can choose to get a tax ID even though you're a sole proprietorship. I cannot give you advice on taxes, but at that point, if you just choose to be the account to be under homes and home lenders, then you need to get a what we call an EIN number, that is employee identification number from the IRS, and we can use that. That is for sole proprietorship. All other entities, LLCs, corporations, and all that, you have to have a tax ID. And those tax ID are not the ones given by the state because sometimes people confuse them. I'm talking about a tax ID issued by the Internal Revenue Service, which is generally called employer identification number.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other question? Any other question or business or comment that you have to bring forward? This is an opportunity as well for you to bring out your businesses, those who are running businesses right now. You can bring it forward, but together with your questions, if you have any.
I have a question. I think it goes, my question will go to Mr. Batuk. I wanted to find out if you are opening up an account, an account as a business, do they run your credit or they don't have to do that?
It depends on the bank. If I can speak for my specific bank, which is Regions Bank, we do not run credit when we are opening accounts. However, what we run is a history of previous bank use, usually through telecheck, or people know it as check systems and things like that. It is not the same as a credit bureau, but it's also an agency where banks report previous unsatisfactory behavior of customers. So if you previously was banking, say with Bank of America, and somehow you abused your account, they can report to that agency, and all banks pull from the same source. But again, to be clear, that's not credit, that is banking history.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I also have a question for Mr. Mwanga Batuka. Mr. Mwanga, since your bank offers or can offer insurance policies, can they offer a group insurance policy, life insurance policy?
I have not seen it happen. I cannot say that it can't be. I have someone who handles the insurance part of my business. Definitely, I can find out from him if that's something that that he can do.
We thank you so much. Everyone on the panel really sounds, you really know your stuff. Thank you so much. I just have a question to the panelists. What are the main advantages of someone having an LLC over a DBA, over having a DBA?
Mr. Mwanga, you want me to take that?
You need to take that because I stay away from tax advice because it has tax implications.
Okay, let me first make a disclaimer. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an accountant, but I know a thing or two along those lines. The main differences between a DBA and an LLC, which is a limited liability company, has a whole lot to do with the way you are taxed and the benefits that each particular entity receives. When you do business as or a DBA, if you have a DBA business, doing business as, you do not have as many breaks as a person who has a limited liability company. Let me give you an example. If someone has told you about planning wisely and stuff like that. Sometimes when you're doing business, errors happen. Errors and omissions, sometimes people can get insurance to cover that. But sometimes the error that happens may run above that. If it runs, let's say you made an error and you sold some item to somebody and their business depended on that, and whatever you sold them messed up their business and they incurred a whole lot of loss in income or in revenue, then that person can come and sue you because you are doing business as, like in our prior example, as Mr. Wandera, then they can literally sue Mr. Wandera. Remember also when he said he set up his business under his own social security number, so he can be sued. But if I made an error as a limited liability company, in many cases, you can sue my company, but you cannot touch my personal belongings because the company is an organism in itself, and I'm an individual by myself. So those are the two things. The second thing is there are lots of tax benefits that are given to LLCs and other corporations that the DBA type of business doesn't get. I think those are the two main differences. But, well, let me add one more thing. The filing fees for a DBA are very different from an LLC. And I don't remember the actual numbers, but I think in Texas it's about maybe about $500, $600 or even more. I would have to check the numbers, but the fee for filing. The what?
$350 to file for LLC, and the DBA is about $21.
That's the last big. I hope that gives you some answer.
Thank you, sir. That's good advice.
Mr. Tim, I think this question is for you. There's a question right here. I don't know whether it's for Mr. Batuk or for you, for Tim. It says, I believe running more than one business is the way to accumulate wealth in America. Do you have, do banks allow you to have like a several accounts of different banks with the same person, several accounts in the bank, in the same bank?
Simple yes.
Yeah, I'm glad Mr. Batuka answered that. But I was going to say, number one, in this country, you can own as many businesses as you want. In fact, if you set it up right, you can set up a DBA that owns another, no, you can set up an LLC that owns another LLC. And again, for the above mentioned issues that you get advantage. But again, it depends. I'll give you an example. If you opened up an LLC, but you tied that LLC to an IRA. An IRA is an individual retirement account. You can do a lot of business, especially the people that don't have like a 401ks or stuff like that to save money for the future. You can do that, but all of the profits that comes out of that money don't go to your personal account. They have to go to the account for the business, because you tied it up to a retirement entity. But you can open an account. In that case, you'll open an account under that LLC. But you can open multiple accounts for the LLC, the other LLCs that you open. I hope that sheds a little light.
Yes, there's a question on the chat, Mr. Batuka. I think that's Mr. Batuka.
Oh, you want me to read it, or you're gonna read it to me? Let me check.
We see banks do give offers.
Yeah, I've seen the question, but it's such a broad offers. It's such a broad. It's so broad. I don't know where to start, because we send offers for prospects to open accounts with us. We send prospects for people to come and finance cars, homes, get business loan. I need some clarity in terms of what kind of offers someone is asking about. But if I could, the short answer is yes. But I also add the point that I spent a good the evening talking about. Come to the bank or call your banker and get more information about these offers to make sure that it's an offer that suits you, it's an offer that you need. A bank such as mine, we are not about pushing products. We are about finding solutions for the needs of our customers. Sometimes those offers may not necessarily be consistent with what you might need. So again, I'll channel you back to having a conversation with the banker.
Mr. Batuka, the last portion of that question says, are there some that you would encourage us to take specifically?
Discourage, would you?
You say discourage. Without looking at what that offer is, it would be irresponsible of me to discourage. That's why I am saying that you get an offer from the bank, read it, call your banker, and have a conversation about it. It has to meet a need that you have. We are no longer in the stage where banks are just opening accounts, things for customers which they might not need. It's just like I give an analogy for a physician. A A physician should not be sending these offers that, hey, I have this kind of medication and that. The encouragement is that all offers, first of all, they are legitimate, but find out what is it, what kind of specification and what are the fulfillment requirements for you to, to take advantage of it. Is it even something that you need? So that is, it's a long answer, but that's the best way I can answer it.
Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Mwanga, is your bank just a state bank? Is it a regional bank, or is it a national bank?
No bank is really national. National being, for instance, we are 50 states, but we are a national bank to the extent that any bank can say that. We've been around for more than 200 years and we're in 15 states.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think if there's no any other question or no, there's a question again there.
Okay, let me go down to see.
It reads, are there any differences in bank requirements for opening a DBA account with an EIN versus a personal SSN?
I would say that in terms of the process that I outlined, there is really no difference except for a very specific difference that I mentioned. If you're going to open a DBA and you intend to not use your social security number, then you need to give us proof of that EIN number. And that proof is simply a letter that is generated from the IRS that would have your name, doing business as, and it will have the EIN number. You bring that along with a DBA, usually from the county, and that should be sufficient along with your personal identification information.
Okay.
Well, what are the minimum amounts you have to open an account at your bank, and what are the charges, if you have any, every month?
In as much as I'm tempted to answer that, I'm going to be faithful to the approach that we use, which I'm happy to repeat. We train our bankers to sit down with the customer, find out what their needs are, where their other monies are, what they intend to use their account, for, and all that kind of information. And then the banker recommends a specific type of checking account consistent with the findings after that conversation. That is how we do it. Now, me sitting here and trying to kind of discuss what, accounts and what is the minimum here and there. We have different types of account. We only recommend a particular account after we've had a conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
If I may add just a little bit to what Mr. Mwanga said, the EIN number is the employee identification number. It is given to the person that is going to do business, whether a DBA or LLC, if they are going to have employees. The bank has a prerogative to ask you for that number, or they can choose to use your social security number. But that EIN number, usually when the IRS gives it to you, they're assuming you intend to grow this business and there's no way you can do all the work by yourself. So it's important to have that. If you show to your banker, it just gives them confidence. Yes, this guy is even hiring some people. Maybe you can then talk to them about payroll and stuff like that, and if they have instruments that can help you. But I think in terms of opening an account, it is up to the banker to choose which number most people will go. If you do a DBA, they will go with your personal social security number.
Okay. Thank you so much, man. We don't have much to thank you for this presentation, and you've cleared a few things in our minds. Now, for sure, we're not going to fear bankers. Mr. Batuka, now we can embrace you. It's okay. We feel now it's normal. But previously, when banks call you, you feel like there's a trouble going on now.
Yeah.
And now we have understood. We now understand it's for a good purpose, for a good cause. And Mr. Tim, also for in area of business, I think we can, with all these enormous opportunities here in the city of Houston, I think that's encouraging that we can actually jump on it. But all I want to request you, gentlemen, that you put your information on the chat and allow the members of the community who are not able to call to send their question to contact you so that you can advise accordingly. As of now, maybe you don't charge us for when they call you, don't charge for every call, but bear with us as we pick up until we get to that level where we should be able to pay. So that being said, I think that was very good for us. The audience will agree with me that this is a superb presentation. And the audience, I would like to say thank you so much for every one of you who made some effort to come in and join us. This information is very useful. You can get back to those numbers that we're going to put on I think they're on the chat already. So you can get back to any of them and they're willing to help you. Because as of this year, we assure our community is moving forward. And before you know it, we know that this community is going to grow. We want to share in the American dream, but we want to be organized as much as possible, just like the way the country is. The country is organized. And so every one of us needs to be organized to achieve those goals that we have. So I would like to say thank you so much. I don't have the committee list with me, but our committee has been working tirelessly over this. And I would like to introduce to you our chairman, Mr. Godfrey Tolit. He has been online, but not visible. And we have Badru, Badru Labongo. We have Mr. Kaya, the man on the media is Mr. Kaya. He's been doing very, very well. So I want to say thank you to him. We have Mr. Mike Mukasa, and then we have Mr. Muwonge, we have Amy, all those, some of them are within here, but they are not, you can't see them. But finally, I would like to hand you over to the chairman to just say a word of thank you and then to close the meeting. Godfrey.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this well-programmed and this enlightenment that we had about opening businesses and banking. It's been knowledge always, you know, it's nice to acquire knowledge. It's a good thing. So for all the speakers, the presenters, Mr. Batuka, Mr. Kizito, and Patrick opened up with talking about mortgages. That was very helpful. And Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you, Ross, for organizing this meeting that we had. The knowledge that we received from here should be able to help us. and we look forward to putting it into application. So I ask God to bless us all, and also like to pass a message to you all that since the vaccination is taking place, so I encourage each one of us, if you get a chance, please get vaccinated. COVID is a serious thing. And soon they're about to start vaccinating the teachers in the schools, so our kids should be in school 100%. We're looking forward to that. And we look forward to a time where we don't have to meet virtually, where we can physically meet. We're really looking forward to that. The day it will be open, so although the governor says now there's no mask mandate, I caution each one of us, please take care of yourselves. Wear your masks and just be careful when you get out there. So God bless you all. And Mr. Kara, you take over.
Thank you. Yes, I know people, some of you are following up on what Governor Abbott is saying. So you just have to use some personal discretion there. So today I was in one of the stores, and there are people with no mask completely. And so I don't know whether they are vaccinated or not. So I was there in between, but but it's on your personal discretion. So, but the mayor insists that you keep your masks on, like Mr. Godfrey said. So please handle that in the best way possible. Other than that, thank you so much for every one of you. Please convey our messages to all the other members who were not able to log in, that they will have share of this that we have had here. Thank you so much.